Hi, great people, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another edition of our Reflections, which is a program devoted for some of those very important topics and issues agitating the nation. Today, I mount the saddle and I hold the fort of my ideological convictions to share my views with you on the topic criticisms. I hold tenaciously that every genuine critic in a society is a patriot and a nation builder. Because critics are those who stand at the border post of the nation's conscience, and they're the kind of people that would not easily condone the profane conduct of nation killers and vision murderers. I say this because I firmly believe that every genuine and well-thought criticism carries the import of corrective proposals and hints of alternative possibilities on issues of public interest. And I think that if you have somebody who can point out the fact that you are ill like a critic, he should be given that regard. Critics are people who don't take anything for granted. They are people who do not swallow public policies hook, line, and sinker. They have the knack to scratch deeper beyond the surface in order to avoid the superficiality wherein glittering externalities are allowed to subvert the core of genuine probings on issues of common interest. I say this because in our society, the critic is the scapegoat. When there are issues that are agitating the nation, all the blames are put on the person who is trying to point out what is wrong with the nation. And I say this to say that every leader should pay attention to critics, especially those critics that are genuine, those critics, those patriotic critics that want to see better nations of their own. A nation that is in a lamentable short supply of genuine critics is a sick nation. I say this because if every piece of criticism carries the import of corrective propositions and hints of alternative possibilities, it would mean that the critic is that proverbial person, is that person who does not only curse darkness, he lights the candle to show the way. And I want to say that leaders should pay attention to critics, because critics are not enemies of the Republic like some people like to project. I want to give you this little anecdote. There was a king of a certain village who was kept away from criticisms. I mean, the people around him, his entourage did not allow him to listen to public criticisms. And it happened that one day he saw an irate crowd of demonstrators who were surging towards his palace, and he fancied that crowd for a motion of support caravan and went in to don his robes to come and receive them. And later on, he was surprised that it was a crowd of very angry demonstrators who were angry about his policies in that village. And so this is the yawning gulf, what political scientists call the distance of power. That is the distance between the role and the roller. It is the greatest king killer all over the world, because if you have a king, if you have a ruler, if you have a leader who is very far away from the people because he does not have the opportunity to listen to criticisms and dissenting voices in the society, that leader is likely to be very vacuous about what is happening in a society. And I still insist and appeal to those who policymakers that critics are not enemies of the society. And I want to say clearly that those who talk about constructive criticisms most often are policymakers who do not want to get the other side of the coin. Criticisms are criticisms because if you point out what is wrong, it means that there's something good. So the picture is balanced. Sometimes when they talk about constructive criticisms, they want people to say that, oh, it is wonderful, it is good, and so on. But when we hit the facts on the head and call issues by their real names as far as public policies are concerned, it is good for the health of the nation. It is good for the health of the society. That said, let me give you the exact opposite of this little anecdote. At one time, the former president of Tanzania was not getting dissenting voices enough about his policies and decided to create a page in the National Daily of Tanzania. And that page, that column was called How Others See Us. In this column, all the dissenting voices, all the criticisms about government policies were published in this column. And each time that the paper came out, the president would go straight to that page to read all the criticisms about his policies. And I want to say that when you keep public criticisms away from a leader, you want him to grow up in the dark, not knowing what is happening in his country. Remember that there was this phenomenon in Kasbambili, where there was a newspaper, there was a wall where people used to go and publish articles. Even when there were complaints in school, they would allow students to write and post on the wall. So it was a way of getting dissenting voices. It's a way of getting, alternative views about policies in the school. Even when when you go to hospitals now, you see the suggestion box. Even in microfinance institutions and banks, you see that there's a suggestion box. That is very laudable because they would like to get criticisms from their clients about what is not going on well in those areas. Critics are nation builders. Somebody, I think, for instance, I would prefer to be with a friend who can tell me that, Kinney, you are stark naked, telling me the bitter truth about the fact that I'm stark naked, than to the one that would tell me that I'm well dressed when indeed I'm dressed in Adam's suits. So it is very clear that it is better for a leader to listen to the bitter truth, let the bitter truth play into his ears, than sweet lies, because sweet lies will make you feel good in that superficial situation, in a situation that is not real, in a situation that is surreal, and so on. So bitter truth by critics is what policymakers and leaders should be gunning for. Not every critic, because if you listen to me carefully, I'm talking about genuine and well-thought criticisms, because there are certain criticisms that are really very negative. By the way, there's a dichotomy between certain critics, because some of them would like to describe the cup of government policies to be half full, and others will say it's half empty. Critics who say that the cup is half empty are critics who are advocating the fullness of that cup. They cannot say that they are negative. They cannot say that they are not patriotic. And what is patriotism in the first place? Is that feeling of love that feeling of loyalty and devotion to a nation, its people, and its values. And the moment you see that something is wrong with this country that you love so much and loyal to, and you shoulder the responsibility to point out that this is getting wrong, you should not be taken as an enemy of the Republic. So I want to clearly indicate to policymakers that when you listen to dissenting voices and critics, you can always make the difference. Your policies will be better. You can, even if it is a product that you are trying to put on, and you listen to people criticize from left, right, and center, you can bring out a very good product. You can bring out a very good policy. And I like to say that not every critic should be carrying a bag of, proposed solutions. If you want to comment about the size of a house or the shape of a house, I must not be an architect. So it means that you can listen to a problem and then you hint the person who has the responsibility, who has the technical wherewithal to solve the problem. So I want to say that critics in the society are like doctors, and we can only praise them and appreciate them, because when you have somebody who can give you a clear diagnosis of what is wrong with you and proposing solutions, we cannot be denigrating those people. We can only praise them and appreciate them. Thank you very much. I think this topic, we should not overemphasize, because all the time that even in our families, when you have critics, you have a child who stands up and tells the father that, Papa, you did not behave well. This is what you ought to have done, and so on. It may not be a sign of disrespect, but you see that that child is, stigmatized and all that kind of thing. So it's the same thing with national policies. And I take this opportunity to thank those who are listening to me in good faith, and to believe that I'm also doing my own contribution. I'm contributing my own block to the building of the nation through this forum of public discourse. Thank you very much for listening to me. God bless you.